Welcome to the Mick, a Mook, and a Mike.
Hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer
Frank Pace and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guest.
My brother Billy.
My brother Frank, how are you, buddy? How's everything?
Good. And there's our other brother Joe and our other brother Derek.
Wow,
Hey.
we're all at it tonight. A big four. We should play bridge. There's four of us.
And Joe and I have matching shirts.
Yeah, that's because we're teammates, and you and Derek are teammates. So
Yeah.
Oh.
So we'll gang up on each other.
One, two, huh?
Well, I am part Irish, so Billy.
Yeah, your pocket. That's the dark Irish, I would suppose. Huh?
Yeah, of course.
Well, this was an interesting week, wasn't it, boys?
A lot of stuff going on out there, huh?
The master of deception is at it again.
Good movie. I mean, put the open. I got to tell you guys a story. I don't know why I should open with this, but it's really. I was waiting for Jennifer to come out of church last Sunday, right? So I'm sitting on a step outside the church.
You're not in the church. You're waiting for.
I don't want the roof to collapse, but I'm sitting on the steps outside, and this guy comes over to me. He's about maybe 5 or 6 years older than me, suit, tie, real distinguished-looking guy. And he looks down, and I had this hat on, this gag hat, dysfunctional veteran, leave me alone, right? I'm a dysfunctional veteran, leave me alone. So I got that hat on, and the guy looks down at me and says to me, dysfunctional veteran, huh? What's that mean? I guess we're all a little dysfunctional in one way or another. I said, he said, where'd you serve? So I said, a remote place in northern Thailand on the Laotian border. You probably never heard of it. It's called Nakhon Phanom. So the guy says to me, Nakhon Phanom, naked fanny, huh? NKP. I said,
Wow.
Now, right away, I knew that the guy had been on that base because nobody would know that, So I said, yeah. I said, wow. I said, well, you were over there? He says, yeah. I says, I says, what'd you do over there? He says, I flew Jolly Green Giants. That was our helicopter, the rescue squad. That's what we were there for, Jolly Green Giants. He says, flew 64 missions. He gets proud. I flew 64 missions, made 28 rescues. I said, wow. You mind if I ask you, sir, what rank you were? He says, full bird colonel. I said, thank you very much for your service. I said, I mean that because I had a soft touch. I was a computer operator. What you guys did was the real deal. I said, I never really felt a part of it until Bat 21. I said, when that happened, I says, they put it all over the base on loudspeakers. Bat 21, they made a movie about with Gene Hackman. It was about a pilot that got shot down. And for 3 days, he was surrounded by Charlie. And the Jolly Green Giants were trying to get him out. And they couldn't get him out, So they blasted it all over the base, and we were all involved. There was a lot of drama for 3 days, and they finally got him. So I said to him, he says, oh, yeah, I was involved in that mission, Bat 21. I said, you were? I said, no kidding, man. I said, that's unbelievable. I says, how'd you guys finally get him? He says, we didn't get him. We didn't get him. He said, the SEALs got him. I said, really? How'd they get him? Listen to this story. 3 Navy SEALs went up where the firefight was going on, where he was hiding, and the Viet Cong were trying to get him. As close as they could get to the firefight, and they fought their way in and they fought their way out, and they came out with the guy, right? But here's the story that blew me away. He says, I met one of the guys from the Navy SEALs in the officers club. About 2 months later, we had a conversation. They called the guy Cochise. I'm going to tell you why they call him Cochise. That was the nickname, because they like to break balls, too. They like any other tough organization, they break balls. This guy told this colonel that I was talking to, when he went under the water, the first time he came up by the firefight, he saw everything clear as a bell. He could see the explosions. He said he knew where we were going to go. Put his head back under the water. He came up. He said he couldn't see nothing. Blackness. Absolute blackness. Same thing went on again. He went down, clear as a bell, blackness. This went on 3 or 4 times, and then he realized there was blood pouring down his head. What had happened was the first time he had surfaced, the back of his head got blown off. And it was on a hinge. So every time he went under the water, the thing would come forward and block his face when he came back up. And when he went under again, it would go back the other way like a hat, right?
Oh, my God.
Now, listen to this. So what he did was they taped them up, and they went ahead and completed the mission. Right? That show you what these guys are made of, Navy SEALs. I mean, they're like unbelievable, right? So they started after it was all over. They started calling him Cochise because he was scalped. That was the deal. Well, as he's telling me the story, I'm looking at this guy and I'm just flabbergasted because I'll tell you a quick story about Navy SEAls in Okinawa when they were going into Okinawa when we lost more troops.
This is the third story within a story within a story, but go ahead.
That's the way it goes.
Sorry, go.
Just to give you an idea how these Navy SEAls like to break balls, how tough these guys are. We lost more on Okinawa than any other island in the Pacific, and they had to demine it before the Marines were coming in to land. So they went in there at night, demined all the stuff. When the Marines finally came in at dawn to land, as they were coming in the water babies, they looked up and on the rocks, on the stones were painted, "We were here first, Marines." These guys not only went in enemy waters in the most dangerous situation that they could be in the Pacific, they took time out to break balls, right? I mean, that's the way these guys are. So when this guy told me the story about Cochise, I said, why don't we have a parade for him? That's the guy we should be having a parade for. I mean, these are the kind of guys that are the real deal. Anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
It's only a coincidence that our beloved president was born on June 14th.
I know, 365 to 1 odds. That's kind of a long shot. I'd like to have a few bucks on that.
But I mean, what do you think of all this parade stuff? And I mean, it's crazy. I mean, again, he's done a good job of hiding it amongst the 250th anniversary. I mean, this guy's a master of deception. He took all the heat off Elon Musk. He took all the heat off the beautiful Bill by going after a segment of the population that is a win-win with the American public, which is in immigration. Don't you think, Joe?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's and you forget that he hired Elon Musk to take the heat off him when he started putting all these programs in place. So Elon Musk was the fall guy, and now Elon's realized I got to go run my businesses because I'm losing money here.
Taking a hit.
And he can't stay and do this forever. And it's amazing how he didn't send out people to protect his dealerships when they started burning his cars. But now he's sending in the National Guard and the Marine Corps because the policemen in Los Angeles haven't been given the right to do anything, and some of that is just political garbage. But the point is, down here in Florida, we have 2 sheriffs in Polk County and Brevard County that have made it public that if there's any looting or stuff that's going on in their cities, you'll be shot. And you know what? They don't have a problem. There's nobody. Of course, we don't have the influx of the illegal immigrants in these counties that they have in California. But I don't think it's fair to blame these people who want to be here because this is a better country than where they live, and not handle it in a more diplomatic way. Do I think what he did was right because I don't think the governor was strong enough? Yeah, but there's a better way to do it than to force it down somebody's throat like they did.
Well, you realize, I'm sorry, Bill, you realize that the protests are limited to 1 square mile of Los Angeles.
Absolutely.
Well,
But there again, what are these? Why are they letting them loot these businesses? They did the same thing. If you remember the little town in Missouri, Ferguson, where they had, it was a smaller section of St. Louis, and then they, who was the guy that got shot by the police officer there? And
I can't recall his name either, but I know what you're talking about.
But the point is, they looted and raided the town of Ferguson. Well, Ferguson had one little grocery store. It was one little pharmacy in the grocery store, and now because they can't get insurance, they've had to close that grocery store. Now the people of Ferguson are complaining, well, we don't have a pharmacy, we don't have a grocery store. Well, no, because the people that live there tore it up and burned it down. I don't think the people that are rioting and tearing up stuff understand that when you do that, the consequences are greater to rebuild it back because no one's going to insure your business. I mean, would you go insure that telephone store that they robbed everything out of it? I wouldn't.
Well, I think, however, that again, the media has blown out what's going on in Los Angeles way out of proportion. Derek, what do you think?
I think that what you just said about the media blowing things out of proportion is absolutely correct. I think that listen, narrative is extremely powerful, and we must not forget that we do have propaganda operations happening on a constant basis. And so the idea, like, people have called me from other places and asked me, are you guys okay? Is it extremely dangerous in LA? And I told them, first of all, in all parts of LA, just about, you would not know the riots are going on. So the portrayal on the news makes it seem like it's a complete disaster in Los Angeles. So, I mean, I have some other thoughts about it, but just pertaining to the riots, I think that the narrative, the media is making the people in America feel completely unstable.
But perception is reality. I mean, that's
Yeah,
the situation. So,
totally.
I mean, I get, and what Joe's saying is absolutely right. Anytime you riot, you undermine your cause immediately. You've already screwed everything up. If you're going to peaceful protest, that's your First Amendment right. But when you start with the violence and stuff, then you're just opening up the opportunity for them to hit you over the head, and nobody's going to complain. But I heard something on the news today. I don't know how true it is. I mean, it was on the news. That's a terrible thing to have to say. I heard it on the news. I don't know how true it is, which will show you how things are. But
Yeah.
they said in Dallas, they have a lot of protesters on the street today for the No King's Day or whatever they call it. And they said there was a peaceful protest in downtown Dallas of about 5,000 people, and the police joined the protest.
Wow.
And started walking with the people in Dallas, which is a Napoleon moment. That's like storm the Bastille and turn the guns towards the government.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that's going to spread, and I don't know. I didn't see it on video. I just heard on the news. I don't know how true it is, but Obama got rid of 3 million illegal immigrants. He was called the deporter in chief for a reason. 3 million. So far, ICE has gotten rid of 300,000.
Yeah.
But the dramatic way they're doing it is the point.
Clearly on purpose.
Without a doubt. I mean, that's the point.
Yeah.
I mean,
And today I heard he dialed back, or today or last weekend, I heard he dialed back raids on hotels, fields, etc., because it was doing damage to his political base. So he stopped the raids on all those people that contribute to our society, and he just wanted to concentrate. He said he wanted to concentrate on people that had entered the country illegally and are criminals. So that's another fine line he's got to cross.
You're not going to find a lot of rapists and murderers hanging out at Home Depot looking to work, like are running in the fields. I mean, look, anybody is here illegally, obviously they're here illegally and they're not contributing, they got to go. However, the way they're doing it, throwing people to the ground, coming in with masks, looking like stormtroopers, like Derek said, that's just, I think it's all by design.
Well, what about was done with Senator Padilla?
I don't think anybody knew who he was.
He kept saying, "I'm a senator from California. I'm a senator from California."
Yeah, but the people that escorted him out were not police officers; they were Secret Service.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were protecting her. They didn't care who he was, and there's a proper way to address somebody. You don't shout at them while they're trying to give a speech, and he could have he could have made his point a little better. And, is it embarrassing that they had to do that to him? Yes, that was a bad thing that they had to do that to him. But I don't think they knew who he was. And like I said, they were Secret Service. They were protecting the bondies. They were not police officers. And I'll give them credit. They did it really quickly.
Yeah. Well, Secret Service operates quick. That's for sure. They sweep
But
it.
here's another thing that we're not touching on. As far back as when Ronald Reagan was the governor of California, he tried to get the workers that were illegal back then to sign up with the government and prove that they were here working and making an honest wage and trying to be as good a citizens as they could. And the workers didn't believe him. They didn't believe, and they were afraid of the government. They were afraid if they signed on and said, I'm an illegal alien, but I'm here working, blah, blah, blah. They were afraid they were going to be deported then. So they didn't. And there's hundreds, if not, well, probably thousands uh, of illegals that are here, like you said, working in a hotel or working in the fields, that have done everything they can possibly do to make a living for themselves. And these people are subject to the fact that we opened the borders wide open for no reason, to let anybody in that they wanted to. And the Democrats say, well, everybody has a right to come here. That's just not true. You need to come here in the right way. And now they're offering them $1,000 to go back to Mexico and re-enter. I mean, so there's a conglomerate mess going on right now that no one has been able to put their hands around. And the sad part of it is the guys that are getting hurt are the guys, like you said, that have had a job here, that have worked here for years, that have lived here for years, have raised their kids here for years. There's parents in California right now that are scared to death that they're going to be deported because they came here illegally, and yet they have done nothing wrong in the scope of being law-abiding citizens. And that's not fair either.
There are some people that came here legally that are worried about being deported.
Well, that's
Yeah.
true too.
Yeah, quite a few.
And if people find out me and Billy are on here, they might try to deport us.
I ain't going back, Joe. I ain't going back. I would have swam over if I knew this country was so good. I would have swam over from Ireland. Talking about immigrants, and I mean, obviously, my family immigrated from Ireland, through Ellis Island by boat, and we did it, But I still wasn't a citizen when I was joining the service. It used to be when you joined the service, you became an automatic citizen. And I didn't become a citizen. My father naturalized within 3 or 4 years. My mother didn't naturalize for about 10 and 12 years. And I didn't become a citizen until they were both naturalized. But regarding these people that are walking 1,000 miles, 1,500 miles from Nicaragua and walking up through Mexico to try and get to the border, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. They got to come here legally, However, these are people that are willing to make that trek because the life behind is so bad. You don't leave, like even when the West, Manifest Destiny, when the West was first opened, to go across 3,000 miles of land on covered wagons, you don't do it because you left Europe and it was better. You do it out of desperation. These are desperate people, but they're also the kind of people you want in this country. Anybody who walk 1,500 miles for a better life, that's a pretty determined people. It reminds me like when we went to Vietnam and we went to Iraq, and we accept the people that want to be on our side and say, okay, these are the guys we want on our side. These are the people that are going to be, we're going to put the government in their hands or whatever. Those aren't the people you want. If somebody invaded this country, whether I hated Trump or anybody else or whoever was in office, somebody invades this country, I'm fighting for this country. I'm not fighting for the invader. So the people that assimilate, to go with you, these are the people you don't want. The people that stand up against you, those are the kind of people with the characters that you want. And I think it's the same thing with immigrants. I mean, anybody who's willing to go through that trek, I mean, how many of, even myself, all of us, I mean, can we make a journey like that with kids? You got to be desperate. You got to be absolutely desperate to make a journey like that. The alternative is going back is worse. Otherwise, you would never do it. These are good people.
You weren't you weren't a citizen when you joined the service, Billy?
It used to be when you joined the service, you were an automatic citizen. But they stopped that. So I was a citizen when I joined the service because my mother naturalized when I was about 14. So I didn't become a citizen until I was about 14. Both
You
your
know,
parents have to naturalize.
that reminds me, Rod Carew served, he missed a lot of games during the 69, 70, and 71 season because he was a Marine and he was on Marine reserves and he would be called in to serve on his reservist unit would get called in like 1 month every summer. So in all, Rod probably missed 100 games, but he wasn't a citizen until last summer when he was granted citizenship. So I never understood how the citizen of Panama could be enrolled in the United States Army or Marines. He was a Marine.
Wait, so he was not a citizen until recently?
He was not a citizen when he served in the reserves. Yes.
That's
You can be
crazy.
drafted in this country and not be a citizen. You can
I
be
mean, but
drafted. You can be drafted as a resident alien.
that doesn't make any sense. How are you going to fight? How are you going to be in a military? No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying like that seems dangerous, actually.
Well, it seems like the moment you're drafted or enrolled in like a reserve unit, you automatically become an American citizen. I mean,
Not now. It used to be.
that's what I
That's
was taught.
crazy.
You know,
Wow. I
Joe,
didn't know that.
also, I got into a big brouhaha with the Hall of Fame because Rod was not listed as having served during in the military during wartime. He served during the Vietnamese War. Vietnamese War. And they said since he never was on active duty, he was only on reserve duty, he didn't merit an asterisk next to his name on the Hall of Fame plaque. And that drives me crazy.
Well, and
Just
it's wrong, and it's totally wrong. I mean, um, I have mixed feelings about what goes on at the Hall of Fame because I don't think it's run the way it should be. But that's beside the point. Of course, I feel like I got cheated out of the
I
last.
do too.
But,
Yeah, of course.
I don't know how you could be the most at anything and not get into the Hall of Fame. If you're the most, I mean, that should be the ball game.
well,
what
that brings up another point because now that Shoeless Joe Jackson and Pete Rose have been made eligible to be voted into the Hall of Fame, not going to be voted in the Hall of Fame. What do you think will happen with them?
Well, it depends on how they stack the people that are going to make the decision because there'll be 16 people that'll be appointed to vote on that committee, and either one of them will have to have 12 votes. And the biggest problem that Pete's going to have is he's burned a lot of bridges. And how are you going to find 12 people that are going to say, I don't care what he did, he's a Hall of Famer? You're going to have trouble getting those 12 people. Joe Jackson, on the other hand, when he hit 400 in the series, he got he got suspended for.
Yeah, 387 or something like
yeah,
that.
it was, I think he's got a better chance of going in the Hall of Fame than Pete does. And
But how do you feel now? That brings up another point. If those guys get 12 votes, you're going to be in the same category, aren't you?
yeah, they'll get my votes.
Well, they'll get votes that were intended for you, so they'll siphon off support for Joe West.
Sure.
Wow.
What do you mean when you said Pete burned a lot of bridges? In what respect? With his mouth, you mean? How do you mean, Joe?
Anybody who ever met Pete Rose
Uh-huh.
got a piece of his mind, like
really?
you.
Yeah,
Everybody's entitled to his opinion.
I'm not sure he was of his right mind. I mean, that when he was caught gambling, Peter Ubroth was the commissioner at the time when he was caught. And Peter gave him a chance. He said, we'll treat you like Paul Hornung and Alex Karras, and you'll be suspended for 1 year. You go to Gamblers Anonymous, and then in 1 year, you may have to do some community service work, and that'll be it. And Pete said, I'll take my chances with Giamatti because Giamatti was replacing Ubroth. Well, that was a mistake. I mean, Pete knew that he was wrong, and he just didn't want to fess up to it. And he believed that he was bigger than the game. And That's what killed him. That's why Giamatti was the president of Yale. Let's put it in perspective. You're going to go from a commissioner that's a realist that believed in making money for baseball, which that's what Ubroth did. He was a realist. But Giamatti was a romanticist. When you do something like that to him, you're gone.
Wow.
I mean, Ubroth appreciated what Pete had done in his career and said, "Okay, you're going to have to be punished for this." And Pete wouldn't accept it. So Ubroth let it go. And when it went before Giamatti, he killed him. In
Literally,
fact,
literally
yeah,
killed within a week after the announcement. Giamatti was dead
yeah, yeah.
of
And
a
it,
heart
and
attack, and
and it's
Faye Vincent held that against Pete
yeah.
because Faye Vincent felt that Pete put Bart Giamatti in his grave.
Wow.
Tell you my favorite Gamblers Anonymous story. I was at a Gamblers Anonymous meeting one time. As I've been to every other kind of meeting, Drugs Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, but I'm at a Gamblers Anonymous meeting. And the guy gets up and tells his story. It cracks me up. He says, he's like, I gotta tell you this story. He says, I was at a Gamblers Anonymous meeting. He goes, in another chapter, he goes, about 6 months ago. And I got up and I said, listen, I am such a sick bastard. I am such a sick gambler that when I leave this meeting tonight in Yonkers, he said, I'm driving right to Yonkers Raceway to catch the last 5 races. He goes, that's what kind of a sick bastard I am. And he said, when I sat down, he goes, the meeting was over. I went out to my car. There was 4 guys from the meeting wanted to know if they could get a lift to you.
So
Easy,
crazy.
Billy. Don't kill yourself.
I always laugh at my own jokes, Frank. You know what I mean?
Somebody's got to do it.
Somebody's got to do it. Right. So what do you think about the great, big, beautiful parade? What's your thoughts?
The great big beautiful bill.
Parade.
Oh, the parade.
Great, big, beautiful parade. I mean,
Let me give you a scenario here.
Oh.
You remember when George Steinbrenner was the owner of the Yankees?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember how he was upset if he wasn't on the front or the back page of the paper?
Oh, yeah.
This is the same thing with Trump.
Yeah.
If he's not the headline or the story of the day, he's actually upset. And that's what's wrong with his ego. Yeah. I think deep down in his heart, he can be a good guy, which Steinbrenner proved he could too. And there have been lots of stories about Steinbrenner that people don't know where he helped people out when they were in trouble. I remember when they fired 22 umpires in '99, and he sent a check to Umps Care Charities to help them pay their bills for over $90,000. And no one knows that. No one knows that he did something like that. And if the commissioner had known that he did that, the commissioner would have been mad at him. You see what I'm saying? I mean, there's a lot of good in everybody. It takes an ego to turn into a bad guy. I mean, I'm sorry, it's just the way it is, and you can't look at it like, well, he's just an arrogant, crazy person. If you had Donald Trump's money, why would you run for president? If you had his real estate business, why would you run for it? Why would you want it?
I don't think he ran to run. I don't think he ran the first time with ever the thought that he would be elected. I think he ran to gain publicity for his hotels and his business ventures. And when he did win, he was shocked when he won. when he ran the Republican nomination, and then he was even more shocked when he beat Hillary. But
Bookies had
Hillary beat herself. But
Yes.
And Comey had something to do with it too. Comey didn't hurt.
Yeah.
But the bookies had him at 10-1. I'm sure he was shocked when he won. I mean, I'm sure he was shocked. But what you're saying, Joe, is right about ego. But then you go back to it's almost Shakespearean, like the tragic flaw, like somebody's tragic flaw always brings them down. And you have a tendency to overreach when you have that tragic flaw,
Well, but that being said, Billy's gonna watch Billy's face when I say that. He's he's a political genius. He knows how to play the field. He knows how to take the heat off himself and put it someplace like on immigration that he can't lose.
That he's a winner.
He knows how to package his birthday parade with the 250th celebration of this country so he can say it was done before because Gerald Ford did it at the 200th celebration. It wasn't as big and as massive, and it didn't cost $50 million. But, Gerald Ford also presented a parade of sorts in Florida at the 200th anniversary celebration. So he really is a political genius. But what you said, eventually, I think sometime Musk didn't take him down. Somewhere, sometime, somebody's going to get him.
Well,
And it could be Putin, it could be anybody, but somebody's going to. He's going to fuck up sometime. He's going to fuck up.
well, I think most of these foreign leaders are scared to death of him because he's not stable when it comes to things like that. And like I honestly think Putin is afraid of what he might do. This thing that's happened with Israel attacking Iran, that's to our benefit. We're trying to stop them from developing, nuclear weapons and stuff. And he's tickled to death that they went in there and did that. And I'm surprised that the United States has kept Israel from taking over that whole area of the world. All the stuff that they've been treated and pushed back in a corner, and I'm just and the stupidest thing that happened over there was the attack on the Israeli people back over a year ago. Oh, that just opened the floodgates to people being on the sides of the Israelis, you know, and that for these people to stand out in the streets and say, you know, we have to take care of the Palestinian. Wait a minute, they the Israelis didn't do that. You're the one that started that, and now the Prime Minister of Israel is finally been able to open the gates and fight back a little bit. If you look at history books, the American presidents, the American public has kept Israel from fighting for themselves. And that's not right. They should have been able to take care of their own stuff. And granted, we're helping them now because they're being assaulted by everybody over there. But let's be realistic. We are really the only country in the world where you can start in poverty and grow to be a millionaire if you work hard enough and put things together the right way. There's no other country in the world other than the capitalist system that we have. There's no other government in the world that will let you grow from pure poverty to being extremely wealthy and able to do whatever you want if you work hard enough.
I wouldn't argue with that. I wouldn't argue with that at all.
Yeah.
You have an opportunity here, no doubt about it. And if you work hard, it doesn't necessarily, if you play the game right, whatever game that might be, you can get rich, I mean,
Look at Elon Musk, a South African, rose
Yeah.
up to become the president's best friend for 3 months.
For
Yeah.
3 months. That's
All he had to
hilarious.
do was spend a couple of $1 billion on a couple of $1 million, $350 million to get him elected, and he became sitting right next to right at the right hand of God, so to speak.
Yeah, but put it in perspective. Has there been anybody that's been more successful than Elon Musk with what he's been given in this country, like electric cars? When he had electric cars, everybody loved him except the oil companies. Everybody loved him except the oil companies. And then he taught us how to send a rocket ship into outer space and capture the rocket as it came back down. All the years we had the space program, NASA was never able to do that. I mean, this guy's a genius. And you know what? I think he just got tired of Trump's stuff and he told him off. So, but these are two volatile pieces here that are fighting.
But
And
then eventually he apologized to Donald Trump for saying what he said on the internet.
yeah,
So they always
but
Trump to this point in time, Trump always wins.
yeah, but there again, Trump got elected against Hillary Clinton because of the internet, because of the ability to fight people back immediately, which no other politician had ever had that before. If you look at the news cycle, like somebody argues with you or says something that's totally not true on Monday, you can't get it in a news cycle until Friday. Well, by the time it's in the news cycle on Friday, then the week's over.
Right.
Trump got elected because anybody that would attack him, he immediately attacked back. But he just didn't know when to shut up.
I agree with you, Joe, but that's pretty much more Twitter that he attacked them back, right? Or X or whatever they're calling it now. I mean, and if you're
Exactly.
paying attention to history, and this is gospel, whenever candidate learns to use the media, the news media, the fastest, wins an election. For example, Lincoln. No, this is true. Lincoln had a pockmarked face. They told him cameras started coming into technology, so they were taking a lot of pictures of the candidates. They told them grow a beard, soften your image, Uncle Abe. That was the deal. Then when radio came in, FDR took advantage of the radio, the fireside chats. He was the first one to tune in on the radio. This is the new field of communication. Television. Kennedy got elected because he knew how to look on camera. Makeup, look tan. He beat Nixon basically because of how he appeared on camera. Then Obama took advantage of the internet. When he got in, he was the first one to say, this is the idea here. We got to get on the internet. And then he did it with Twitter. I mean, I think he commanded the deal with Twitter. Hillary Clinton wasn't on Twitter. And speaking of the enormous majority that he got, he won every swing state. No doubt about it. He killed her in the swing states. No doubt about it. But as far as the popular vote, he got less votes than Hillary Clinton got against him because nobody wanted to vote for either candidate. They didn't want Joe and they didn't want Trump.
Well, that's true. That they probably voted for the lesser of the two evils. I mean,
or didn't vote at all.
And here's the crazy thing. The two elections that he won as president, he beat a woman. And I don't mean to sound chauvinist, but
However,
blacks got the vote in this country before women got the vote. And we've had a black president. We haven't had a woman president.
Well, yeah, well, that's true. And a lot of people don't realize women didn't get the right to vote until the 1900s.
Yep.
And the black vote happened immediately after the Emancipation Proclamation. But the thing that gets me here is he beat two women. And the guy that they're saying had lost his marbles, and he was struggling there to end. He couldn't beat him. He lost to him decisively.
Be the first time.
First time.
Yeah.
Well, don't forget, I mean, with COVID, the last year of his term, 75,000 people died in this country. Now, if they want to say it was all kinds of different things like pneumonia, they were old anyway, they were dying.
Well, not 75,000.
But stats are stats.
Stats, but more than 75,000.
75,000 died his last year that he was.
Well, 1 million people died during COVID.
Yeah.
So
the last year, 75,000 died, which is more than we lost in World War II, by the way. We didn't lose that many. We didn't lose over 100,000 in World War II, I don't believe. I could be wrong. Derek, you want to check that? I'm not sure. I don't think we did. I'll bet it's anything. The other day, he got on. He gets up and says that Putin fought in World War II. Putin would have to be 110 years old before World War II. Yeah. He said, I don't understand why Germany and Japan are our friends when we fought them, and Russia's our enemy, and they were our allies. And Putin fought in World War II. I mean, and then he's telling Biden was an android. The last year he wasn't really a person. He's an android or robot. How can people take us seriously with this shit?
Well, not even close.
He's what? How many people?
Much more.
70, 85 million people died.
Oh,
Americans.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Americans?
Of course.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Well,
Go ahead, Frank.
I lost.
I knew it.
I
I knew I
I
shouldn't have
lost
said
my
anything.
train. I lost my train of thought.
It's like the golfer who can't see his drives, and he says, "There's an old man over there. He's like 90 years old. The guy's got eyes like an eagle." He says, "Forget about it. Take him out with you. You'll never lose a golf ball again. He's got eyes like an eagle." So he takes him out with him. He hits his drive. He creams his drive. He says to the guy, 90-year-old guy, "You see it?" He goes, "I got it." They get in the cut. They drive out. He goes, "Where is it?" He's like, "Forget."
400,000. 407,000. 407,000.
407,000 of the whole thing.
In-
Americans, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we lost 1 million during COVID.
Yeah.
So let's.
Well,
let's
yeah,
let- oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead.
just going to say, I mean, it's certainly he was the president, but you can't blame COVID on him, really.
No, but you can blame a lot of incompetence, like screaming it's a Democratic plot. That don't help matters any. Or, I
Yeah.
mean,
What could
political things of it.
Injecting Clorox into your
Oh,
veins.
don't wear masks. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not a medical guy. I don't know. I think the mask. Well, I know you don't believe in masks, Derek. I know, but I mean,
No, it's not that I don't believe in it. I mean, you do a brief search and you realize that you can find pretty quickly that the mask, even Fauci admitted that they don't work. So like those types of things, I just think it takes away from the bad, meaning like there are legitimately bad things that he's doing. And when you say things like, he's responsible for the COVID deaths, I just think it's not, I don't think it's the right framing to
fair enough.
to make him, if you want to make him the villain. I think that there are other things at play that really should be pointed out as it pertains to COVID.
And New York City is going to let Cuomo off the hook, and he's going to be one of the two candidates for mayor in New York City, and he was a big fucker up of COVID.
Hate those fucker uppers.
Want of a better phrase.
Go ahead, Frank.
So, Joe, I want to ask you a question. Derek and I were kicking around a subject the other day, and I said, you know what? I once read an article about every question that I wanted to be asked, but I haven't been asked. So I want to ask you. You've been a public figure for 45 years. You've done a million interviews. What question have you never been asked that you wish you would have been asked?
Well, this is gonna come off the wall, but I've always hated the fact that I've never been asked why I didn't put the umpires in organized labor, and I did try to put them in organized labor. I had both the minor league union and the major league union in the Teamsters, and both unions board of directors voted it down. And here was why I was trying to do it, because that leveled the playing field for the umpires to negotiate. And the biggest problem I had was we had certain people that had relatives in organized labor, and they didn't like it. Or one of the umpires told me, he said, the Teamsters have a criminal element. And I went, and Major League Baseball doesn't.
Wow.
But the minor league union was really shocking to me, because their dues would have been about $9 a month to be affiliated with the Teamsters, and our dues would have been lowered substantially to be affiliated with the Teamsters. And then if Major League Baseball locked you out of your job, they wouldn't get beer delivery or food delivery to any of the ballparks. I couldn't convince two different boards of directors that this was the way to go. And so that's the biggest question I was never asked. What is your biggest disappointment in what you did as president of the union? And that would be the question, and that would be my answer.
I think
Go ahead.
You're dead right, Joe. I mean, I was a teamster. I worked for local 814 when I first came back from Nam. I used to deliver for Sears. And I got to tell you, Hoffa, we loved Hoffa. We loved him. I mean, he had our money invested with gangsters in casinos. You know, they took the pension money, but we were getting back like 40%, 30%. It was crazy, the money that we were getting back on our pension fund.
Per year?
No. Did I mean we were getting 30%
I'm just
a year?
curious.
No,
Yeah.
we made a lot of money. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I don't know
All
what
right.
the exact
Okay.
numbers are, but we were happy with the teams. As a matter of fact, when Bobby Kennedy got shot and they lowered all the flags to half-mast in D.C., I remember that Hoffa called up and said, Union headquarters, Teamster headquarters, you put that flag back up. Because him and Kennedy, obviously, Bobby Kennedy was out to get him bad, you know, Hoffa. But
And
yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, I guess they did business with gangsters, but corporations could be gangsters too. You know, I mean, you know,
Government
Well,
can be gangsters.
government can be gangster government. Yeah, without a doubt.
Major League Baseball is getting 1% of everything gambled on baseball in Vegas right now. That's where all this money's coming from. And now think about it. They're trying to put in these gambling machines in the seats in the ballpark so that you can bet on what the next pitch is going to be.
Unbelievable.
That's
Unbelievable. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they get 1% of everything gambled in Vegas.
Just think about what's going on now with all these with DraftKings and all these things advertised on TV and all the bookies advertised on TV. You take an addictive device like a phone, and then you put an addictive compulsion like gambling, and give access to kids who learn about fantasy football leagues and all this other stuff, and they start getting interested in gambling. Give them access 24 hours a day to gamble anywhere in the world on anything. What could go wrong? I mean, how could that be a bad thing? You don't want to create a whole nation of me.
Of course we do. Why not?
You definitely don't want that.
That's for sure.
That's for shit sure.
Hey, Billy, where is Jimmy Hoffa?
I've heard he's buried in the end zone and the Meadowlands. I've heard he's buried in the Keys. I've heard he's buried there. They chopped him up and he's long gone. I mean, forget it. But I got before Fitzsimmons took over the Union. The thing was supposed to be that when Hoffa got out of jail, that he came back and was in charge of the Union again. And Fitzsimmons didn't want to give it up, and he was in bed with the boys too, you know, with these guys. And
Right.
apparently, he liked the deal.
Hey,
Fitzsimmons better.
Watch it.
Watch it.
Those guys, you know, Frank's guys.
Hey, watch it. Those are my people you're talking about.
Those are them guys. You know, these guys, those guys, them guys.
Hey.
So what else you want to talk about?
Well, we got who's going to win who's going to win in baseball?
Oh, I gotta think, Joe. I gotta talk to Joe real quick. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was watching YouTube, right? And I was watching YouTube. So, you know, umpires, the worst umpires, the best umpire. You're the best. By the way, you're the best and the worst umpire that ever lived.
Yeah. How can you be that?
I don't know, but you're just like on a social.
I saw that too. Actually,
I don't know. You're the best and the worst that ever lived. But they have these YouTube things, the worst calls, the best calls, and I crack up every time I see you, man. I mean, but you're always right there. You know, you're always the presence is there. But when they had you throwing out two cameramen, you threw two cameramen out of the game.
Oh yeah,
it's hilarious. And then he threw out two cameramen. And you commented, yeah, you're gone.
Well, didn't you throw out a PA announcer once, Joe? Also.
Oh, that was in the minor leagues. Yeah.
So it doesn't count.
I got the one guy in Oklahoma City for playing Three Blind Mice. I got rid of him.
pretty
You
funny.
know, it reminds me of Earl Weaver was the manager of the Orioles, and when they had 24-man rosters, they said, what's your secret to your success? He says, well, anytime you got 24 guys, you got 8 guys that love you and 8 guys that hate you. The key to my success is keeping the 8 guys that hate you away from the other ones, the other 8.
It's true.
You know,
Yeah.
and see, that's a good story too, because Earl Weaver was in the American League when I came up, and I worked 22 years in the National League, and the only time I had Earl Weaver was in spring training, and he never finished the game I was in.
This guy, I think, was it Angel Hernandez? Is that the other umpire that they're always they're looking to murder him altogether? Is it?
Oh
Hernandez?
gosh, that wasn't fair either. I mean, that was because he sued Major League Baseball for not promoting him, and I mean, he should have been the next crew chief probably 15 years ago, and so he felt like he was being discriminated against, and he had a big problem with Joe Torre. Torre did not like him, and Torre wouldn't put him in postseason games when he took over, and so Angel hired an attorney out of Cincinnati, and he sued Major League Baseball. And it since that lawsuit, they they have started hiring more minorities than you've ever seen in your life. And in fact, at one time, the entire umpiring development department was all minorities. And there are people that have actually called Angel and thanked him for going after Major League Baseball. But when he did, uh, and Rob Manfred turned the dogs on him. He there was stuff that was printed that they wouldn't retract. There was stuff that would happen they wouldn't take up for Angel. He was called in for a hearing 1 year before I retired from umpiring for making the right ruling on a batting out of order situation. They had a hearing, and he made the right ruling. And during the hearing, uh, Joe Torre even admitted, I think Angel got the play right. And I happened to be on the call because I was on the board, and I said, well, then this is nothing more than a witch hunt. I mean, some guy just accused me of cheating, calling pitches that were outside against the Atlanta Braves, and you did nothing. And yet this guy made the right call, and you're having a hearing with lawyers and doctors and Indian chiefs. I said, that's not fair. That's not right.
How does Joe Torre get to decide who?
Well, Joe Torre was the head of on-field operations at one time.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And
He's still got a pretty high ranking in Major League Baseball, doesn't he? Right below the commissioner.
I'm not sure what his exact title is, but he does still work for the commissioner's office. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been deified.
Yeah, they take his Angel and then it's YouTube. I'm talking about YouTube. I mean, whoever puts these things up don't know what the hell they're doing anyway. It's just for.
Well, yeah, I take issue with that. I think the people that put those things up know exactly what they're doing, and they have an agenda. And in that case, it sounds like it was the commissioner's agenda that they're forwarding.
Well, and I'm sure it was because Rob Manfred has told us many times in negotiations that if you mess with us, I'm going to come back at you with tooth and nail. And he said, I'll fight you foxhole to foxhole. And that's what happened.
Wow. So he was really a good umpire, like in your opinion, because they render him on YouTube.
Oh yeah, well yeah, and the sad part was they never took up for him when he was right. You know, you could take any umpire and find a mistake that he made. They're not perfect. We're not perfect. We never have claimed to be perfect. But and if you take him, and I mean, there was one report that said he missed more plays in the 1 month that he worked, the year he had a back problem, that he missed more plays in 1 month than all the other umpires the whole year. That wasn't true. That was a made up story. That didn't happen. So it wasn't fair.
Well,
And,
I think that Major League Baseball likes their umpires to be faceless.
oh yeah,
And
that's true.
you were anything but faceless, Joe, and you were anything but faceless, Joe.
He's the most famous, no?
Yeah, and you only survived for 46 years, so
Yeah. Hey, Joe, I got a question.
Not a bad run. I wouldn't mind opening up a saloon that lived with 46 years. If I got a 46-year run, I'd be pretty happy.
you wouldn't have survived a 46 run opening of the saloon.
Hey, Joe, I got a question.
Yeah, but with Billy as proprietor of that 46-year-old saloon, we'd have lost money. I mean, because you know he's not going to pay for all his drinks.
I was the only solo owner in history that had to borrow money from his partner to pay his bookie. It's true as God.
That's crazy. Hey, Joe, you once threw for 400 yards in a single game, right?
No, not quite. I don't think.
386. What was it?
Yeah, it was over 300. We played this team. It was North Carolina. North Carolina Central. They had 11 guys on the team the following year turned professional in football.
Wow.
They had 11 guys. Nine of them were on the defense. They gave up 900 yards passing all year, and 300 of it was to Grambling. And we had 300 and something in our game. And the other 10 schools they played got 300 yards all year. So, I mean, and they were on my ass the whole day. I mean,
Wow.
but I set a record for most completions in the game and whatever, and all that stuff. But they killed us. They were that much bigger and faster. I mean,
So you guys didn't win that game, or you
no,
did?
no, we didn't win.
Wow. Do you remember the score?
Right, Billy probably knows because he lost the bet.
I had you in the price, you fuck. I had you in the price.
Hey,
you took me down, Joe. I could have been somebody.
that opens up another area of discussion. What about these college guys and now high school guys getting paid so much money to play? What would you been worth in 1970, Joe?
Well,
Would you have stayed at Elon?
looking at what Cooper Flagg got paid by Duke University. I mean, that's just crazy.
What was that? 8 million?
Yeah, here's a guy that's 18, 19 years old. Rita and I actually saw him play over here at Montverde Academy, and the funny thing was that he was such a unselfish player. You'd have never known that he was going to get this kind of stuff at Duke University. I mean, they were the best high school team in the country. We saw him play a team from Pittsburgh, and they beat him by 100 points.
What? In high school?
They beat him 135-35.
Yeah, that coach needs to be shot.
Well, I
How do
mean,
you come up with numbers like that in high school? I never heard of that kind of numbers in high school.
this guy Cooper Flagg didn't play the second half.
Wow.
They had a guy that was the sixth man on their high school team who was the starting guard for the Brazilian national basketball team. That's how good they were. This kid couldn't start for his own high school, and he's on the Brazilian national team. I mean, they were that good. It was frightening to watch. They had guys, professional players, come watch them play. And you know, Frank, you're saying we should fire the coach. The coach was doing everything he can to keep the points down.
Yeah, but if he allowed them to, I got a whole bunch of opinions on blowouts like that. So I don't want to go into that, but they didn't have to shoot. They could have taken 24-second clock violations or 30-second clock violations and never taken a shot. They didn't have to beat a team by 100 points.
Yeah. Well,
that's just.
You guys got to update me here. Cooper Flagg got $8 million from Duke. When did that come out? Who's paying him? Who paid him at Duke? The sponsors or what?
the alumni pays them. They have a new thing in this. They have what's called the portal that they can all go in and transfer. But this all came from the licensing rights that the players have. And I had to deal with this with baseball card people. You have a situation where they're using your likeness without your permission. They cannot sell something with your likeness on it without paying you for it. Major League Baseball gets around that because you sign a contract, and in the contract it says they have the right to use your likeness for promotional purposes. But they can't go out and make a baseball card with your picture on it without paying you for it. And Marvin Miller was very good about protecting his players that way. When he first took over as the negotiator for the Players Association, the first thing he told his players was you're not to sign baseball cards unless it comes through our office, so we can guarantee that you'll be treated fairly and paid for your likeness. The second thing he told him was that if Major League Baseball ever goes to you and says, I'm doing a good job for you, you need to fire me on the spot.
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
that's interesting. I didn't know that I could probably go out now on the internet and find every picture of a horse's ass to get a piece of the action and get a commission. This guy like the same. Get a piece of that.
I don't think it works like that, Billy.
What?
There's a lot of horses' asses out there.
He's found a new niche.
Found a new mission. Yes.
Quite a few bucks out there waiting for me to pick up.
Well, listen to the NIL numbers. So this is in 2024. So I'm sure.
24, right?
Yeah. Okay. So Shedeur Sanders, $6.2 million. Travis Hunter, who was on the Colorado football team with Shedeur, $5.2 million. Arch Manning, $5 million. Livy Dunn, $4.2 million. AJ.
Who is Livy? Does anybody know who Livy Dunn is?
No.
Yes.
Do you, Joe?
No, I have no idea.
Who is she?
She's LSU gymnastics. She's a blonde chick, LSU gymnastics.
A gymnastic? Wow, they're giving her 5.2.
And the crazy thing about it is she's getting 4.2 million, but she's also getting other endorsements. So she's probably making like $15 million a year.
Is she dating Skeens?
I think she's dating somebody.
Paul Skeens of the Pittsburgh
I could show
Pirates?
you guys. Let me.
if that's the case, I know who she is.
Oh,
but go ahead.
She's a very attractive lady. Let me see if I can share this with you guys. Let me see who she's dating for Frank, so he'll know if she's.
I think she's dating.
Frank wants to know.
Yes, she is Frank. Yes,
okay,
you're correct.
Paul
Skeens, right?
Paul Skeens.
Yeah.
Joe, that reminds me of another thing. People are saying, or I've read a story that minor league baseball is becoming obsolete because with all these guys getting NIL money and with the NCAA playing players and people like Paul Skeens going directly from the College World Series to the Major League World Series, that people, ball clubs and franchises will hire. Yeah, that's her. They're making farm clubs obsolete. Where there used to be like 150 farm clubs, now there's like 45, and they no longer need to run. It's always been the case that baseball teams ran farm clubs in order to give. Each team would have 2 or 3 prospects, and they need 23 guys to fill them out. What do you think about college baseball becoming farm teams for Major League Baseball with guys like Skeens, Pete Crow Armstrong, making the jump directly to the major leagues?
Well, look back and see in the history of baseball how many people have jumped from college into Major League Baseball. It was Bob Horner with the Braves.
Al Kaline. Well, Kaline didn't even play. He jumped straight. He never played minor league baseball. He jumped straight to the major leagues.
Yeah, and so did Horner. Horner went from Arizona State to the Braves.
Right.
And then he hit behind Dale Murphy, and Chris Chambliss hit behind him, and he had one of the quickest bats in baseball. I mean, but that doesn't happen. David Clyde went from high school to the major league.
But what I'm saying is they were playing. They had no options. Now, if you're getting paid $8 million to play baseball in college, you're going to play baseball in college, and more of the 18-year-olds, instead of jumping to the minor leagues and making $1,200 a year, will jump to college and make $2 million a year.
And that's just business.
Yes, I know, But
But baseball is losing out here because baseball is not developing the talent the right way. When you play against professionals, it's completely different, and you know that. You've seen
I
enough
do know
baseball.
that.
You cannot take a college team. And in fact, they used to take college teams down to Lakeland, Florida, which was my first minor league camp. And these kids would come in and they'd play the players that the Detroit Tigers were going to cut. And they'd give them one last shot to play against these college kids. And they would beat them to death. And the only teams that they even scored well against the Tigers or the minor league Tigers were teams that had pitching that could hold up for 2 or 3 innings.
Right.
But those minor league kids that they're going to release and go home beat every one of those college teams. They beat them to death.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the past so much as I'm talking about moving forward.
Well, moving forward, you're hurting the game itself because you're hurting the development process.
Well, that's true.
Major
I
League Baseball is not going to pay the minor league teams the kind of money that these kids can get playing in college.
Correct.
Yeah, so they're hurting themselves by not taking control of it.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense for Major League Baseball, but I actually like the fact that the kids are getting paid because some of these guys end up working in Walmart because they, never made them, they either flunked out of college or didn't make the major leagues or, what
It
have you.
just pisses me off that NCAA is only paying back to 2018 because I think that if they pay back to 1969 or 1970, I want my share.
Oh, I was going to say, what?
Go for it. Me and you get together. We'll get behind the same order. I like to watch his ass money.
I want what I was due.
Wow. Talk about a deficit.
and you want interest too, right?
I want, yeah. You can only give me $50, but I want interest on that compounded daily. So how do we close this out, guys? Derek, you want to close it out? Want to give me a topic? Give us a topic.
I got 2 questions. Well, I got more than 2, but I'm gonna. First thing is
Camp down ladies.
What?
Decamp down, ladies. Easy, Bubba.
Is anybody going on summer vacation?
Well, I'm going to go
Wow.
to New York for a couple of weeks to see my grandson, but that's about it. That's where I'm going. That's about it.
You shouldn't have let that be known publicly. He might leave when you are headed up there.
He's too young to know, Rob.
What about you, Joe?
Rita and I are going to the Breakers next week. We got a certificate that we won playing in a golf tournament, and we have 2 nights at the Breakers Hotel in West Palm Beach. Well, actually, it's in Palm Beach, and we get to play on one of the Breakers golf courses there. So we're going there next week, and then we got a couple of things planned out. She's
Nice.
She likes to travel around. She actually told me, she said, we only got like 8 or 9 years left. We got to start doing more stuff.
Holy.
Breakers is Palm
holy.
Springs, right? Palm.
No. The Breakers is Palm Beach.
Palm Beach, excuse me. Yeah, down by
Yeah.
Trump's Mar-a-Lago.
And I know you're going to Pebble Beach in November or
We do go-
December.
We go to Pebble Beach every year the week after Thanksgiving. Yeah, we do that.
That's nice.
And
I'll meet you there. I'll meet you
Yeah.
there this year. Come hell or high water.
But see, Billy, every year we've told Frank we're coming, he goes somewhere else. So that's right. That's why I told you, don't let the grandson know.
I get it, Joe, but I don't know why he wants to book Newark. I mean, it just has to be in Newark when you're beautiful downtown Newark. I don't know.
And my partner at Pebble Beach is Peter Soboloff, Frank.
Yep, I know that.
Peter's my partner.
He's part of the New York Yankees and producer of the Yogi Berra documentary.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What was the title of that? Oh, it's not.
It ain't over.
It ain't over.
It ain't over until it's over. Huh?
Yep. Yep. What about you, Derek? I mean, you're always on vacation. Every time I look, you're in Australia or New Zealand or who knows. You can keep busy just visiting your kids.
Yeah, that's true. We're probably going to go to El Salvador again, I think. We haven't solidified it, but I think so. I think that's what we're going to do. What about
Listen,
you?
uh, no,
The same. You could be traveling anywhere at any time.
we've got so many weddings we're going to.
Oh.
My
Hmm.
wife has already been to a wedding in Mexico. We've got a wedding in Maine. We've got a wedding in uh, Naples, Florida. We're all over the place. So our entire year is spent going to weddings.
Oh,
So
okay. All
that
right.
and I just got back. Oh, I just got back from New York and Vermont, and we'll close with this story. So I was scheduled to fly from Hartford to, to Atlanta and catch the last flight back to LA from Atlanta. So my flight was scheduled to arrive at 9:30 or so, and I was going to catch an 11 o'clock flight to Atlanta. Well, my plane was delayed. I finally arrived in Atlanta at 12:15, missing my flight to Atlanta from from Atlanta to LA. So it took me about an hour and 15 minutes to get resituated, and I was confirmed for the 7 a.m. flight that morning. So everything was closed in Atlanta airport except one McDonald's that was just closing up, and they were so intent on closing that they gave me the last bag of 8 chick McNuggets or whatever, a Diet Coke, and I said fine. So then I spent that night in the Atlanta airport, and I watched the Atlanta airport go to bed at like 2:15 and wake up at like 4:45 because the people in at the at in Atlanta, they getting ready for passengers start arriving for the 6 o'clock flights, and they start arriving to open restaurants and everything at 5 o'clock. So I spent 4.5, 5 hours in Atlanta airport, and that's the way I started my week. So
Wow.
I don't know the purpose of that story, but
After eating
Well,
that last
I
bag of chicken McNuggets, you're lucky you didn't spend 4.5 hours on a commode.
uh,
Speak.
you're so, the
Speaking
last
of,
the
go
last
ahead.
time I worked with this umpire, Eric Gregg. You remember Eric Gregg?
yeah, sure.
Great big umpire. I mean, he was 340 pounds when he was working, and we're leaving Atlanta and we're going to Houston, and he stopped to make a phone call. And this is really before there were a whole bunch of cell phones, right? That's how long ago it was. Said, Eric, we got to hurry up. Come on, we're going to miss the flight. He said, I got to rent a car. I said, the car's already rented. Let's go. So I don't know who he was talking to on the phone. Don't really care. But so I get on the airplane and we got seats 1A and 1B. Now you got to realize this is a huge man. Now, and the funny thing is, uh, he always carried a bag with him. And he always had a fedora, right? So I hear some scuffling at the front door. So I get up thinking they're going to close the door on him. So I bump into the flight attendant, almost knocked her down. I had to grab her by the arm so she didn't fall.
Wow.
Sure enough, she goes, Southern accent, can I help you? And I'm thinking real fast. I said, well, yes, ma'am. It's been my experience. And whenever I get a good first class seat at the last minute, the biggest guy in the world comes on the plane and sits down next to you. She says, you've got nothing to worry about. We're fixing to close the door. So I'll go back and sit down. And it's not 10 seconds. He comes on the plane with a bag under each arm. And when he stepped on the plane, it was like an eclipse because he's filled up the cabin, right? And everybody in first class starts going, oh, this. So the flight attendant says, can I help you? And he pulls his ticket out, and she sees he's sitting right next to me. And her eyes got big as silver dollars. She moved 3 passengers so that he wouldn't be sitting next to me. But now he's sitting across the aisle from me, right? So she comes back after she's got everybody straightened out, and she says, "Mr. Gregg, is everything all right?" And he said, just like this, "I didn't want to sit next to that honky anyway."
A perfect note to go out on. A
Yeah.
perfect note. You always leave them laughing, Joe.
All right, gentlemen. Good seeing you all.
Yeah,
Good
good seeing you
again.
too.
Enjoyed
Thanks
it.
for looking in, people.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, all. Thanks for looking in.
All right, don't hang up. Don't hang up.
Don't hang up.
Let it run, right?
Retired MLB umpire, country music singer, and future Hall of Famer Joe West.
Next week's guest.
We'll see you next week.